Good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a good weekend. Happy Monday to you. Volatile weekend in the markets. Supposed to be traveling to the States on Wednesday for Fred's conference. Let's see if I make it. We got drones, Russian drones around European airports. We got the FAA unpaid in American airports. So, going to be interesting. I have a lot to do before then if I go. So, let's just get right into it. People are pretty worried about this drop. All right, big drop. We had both big drop here, if you remember. This was sort of a violent drop. Went down to, on the close, under 110. And quickly, in a matter of 2 weeks, back up to 125, all-time high. Intraday. This is just on the day. And then big drop for the weekend. When you look at it on the daily, which this is, you see a lot of these Bart Simpson patterns. And we've always seen these, frankly. Go back to here, big drop, back. Of course, this was like super violent drop because of crazy days, but even beyond that, you can go back here. These Bart Simpson moves all the time. I'm not saying that's the end of the volatility and we go back up, but that's what happens. I like this ratio because, again, what we're doing here is we're comparing the price of Bitcoin to the global miner revenue per unit of Bitcoin. Or another way to say it is the market cap of Bitcoin per all the miner revenue that's made over a trailing 12-month basis. So again, that number is still under $20 billion. If you're just curious what the number is, it's under 20 billion. Gold markets, hundreds of billions of dollars. Oil markets, trillions of dollars a year in global revenue. Bitcoin is very, very small still. So I think it's all the more reason to expect the volatility. Still, every 4 years, we can see a pattern. We have our 4-year pumps. And when we go above the 9, it's usually pretty hot. Right? The 9 here is the 90th percentile. And this means over the evolving trend line. Not this, but this, how it sort of evolves. All right, so we keep a nice fixed view of our multiples over or under trend. All right. And like the USD price curve, this curve as well was more volatile in the early years. Right? As Bitcoin, we're trying to understand everything that Bitcoin was doing. And in later years, this curve starts to look like more like a smooth rainbow. Doesn't mean it has to stay that way, but it seems like it's more smooth, and then we project out. By the way, I first posted this price to sales model on my website at the start of 17. So it looked like this at the time. Posted it right about here. So if you were thinking that this number was like always just going to stay around the same number as 2013, that is the multiple, you could be forgiven for thinking so. All right, so it's 70x basically was the top. Bitcoin kept outperforming that, right? It hit 70x here, 60, 70, 65, and then the top went all the way to 120. That means at the very top of the bull in 2017, Bitcoin was 120 times more valuable than miners would make on a trailing 12-month basis. Unlike other multiples like, I don't know, price to earnings ratio, price to sales can't be compared across industries. So you can't think of it like, you can't look at Apple or Netflix or Tesla to make a comparison what's happening with Bitcoin. You just have to look what's happening in Bitcoin. And what you see is over time, you do get, as is typical with Bitcoin, a power curve showing up over time, right? This all-time nice smooth line. Though admittedly, it's not as smooth as our dollar power curve, which I'll show in a second. But I think showing this in linear on the price and log on the metric might give you some more comfort, right? I mean, calling the top is always more difficult than calling the bottom, so I'm not going to try to say that for sure. But like I've said, with all the other times we've been through a big bull in Bitcoin, we've been above the 9. Where are we now? Heading back to the 7. Now, we could look back at this in a year and see that this was the top. It's very difficult to call the top. But to me, these two sort of bumps, right, specifically here on the back of the Trump win, and here, sort of all this year grinding higher, look mostly like this. All right, this thing can go well down, and price recovers, goes well down, price recovers, it explodes, and starts to come back. Doesn't mean it will copy paste this time, but it's certainly, rounded tops here. Doesn't look like a big top. This, I guess you could argue, is kind of a rounded top too. That I'm talking about the dotted black line, which is the multiple. But you can really see it stretching and then finally falling. History rhymes, it doesn't repeat. I think we can learn a lot from this. Try to stay calm about it. But of course, it's always possible that we're not going to hit the 9, during this bull. It's always possible. Let's take a look now at transaction fees. Another pretty big sign of a top. Big mountains. Big mountains. Ordinals, BRC20s involved. Actually, during this halving, it was a record top. 80, which actually doesn't sound like that much money. Remember I told you Bitcoin is less than 20 billion a year in revenue for miners if they just sold their coins every day based on the dollar price. $80 million a day. This is a daily number. That's a record right here. But then here, there's really not much happening. Less than $1 million a day in fees for miners. Of course, things change. Lightning Network, Taproot. But we had a lot of that stuff already come on here when SegWit was activated. And you still saw these booms. So again, I wouldn't discount anything at the moment. Good morning, Gio. Yeah, I think that's true. I feel like I like to do it because it's the highest signal, but you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and I saw some posts from Checkmate like, you know, when you have such huge liquidation events like you had at the end of last week, shitcoin traders getting pummeled. It's those moments when you're happy your Bitcoin just is hanging out in cold storage and nobody can take it from you. Where is it? I'll talk about gold as well. I saw some tweets from APSK, who follows gold a lot versus Bitcoin. A couple things to say about that. All right. So here's the old chart. Big dip. Went from a 121 plus, nearly 122K close to 114, and then going down like close to 110, maybe even under 110. Maybe not. Still, on my trend, which is different than other people's trends. Some people have a little bit lower number than me. This is my trend line. 116K. Right on it. Not as fun when we're below the black line, because then we're slightly inching the black line lower in the future. Better when we're above it. But again, amidst all the noise, the chaos, we have this trend line to fall back on. Good morning, MP. Good morning. Yeah. It's well said. People trying to get alpha above Bitcoin. It's very difficult to do. It becomes more and more difficult to do every day. I want to say something about gold. So again, gold's still looking good. And Bitcoin in gold is looking good. Bad for Bitcoin, good for gold. But still, all right, so here's when we price it in gold again, just very simple. I'm not bumping it up to dollars to show you the differences. Let's just keep it in gold ounces. All right, so every time we did get above the 9, Bitcoin had always great runs against gold, but again, muted in 2021. You know, some concern here. You can see this kind of kinks. The kink is a bad sign, actually. So you see that the rainbows kind of almost look like they're flattening out, right? But then we kink back because that's how like it was looking all the time before. It was looking more like this, but with such low performance versus gold, we're flattening down the rainbow. This doesn't happen in the dollar chart, right? So gold bugs get excited. But I would say here, even here, look at the worst performance. It doesn't mean we couldn't even be below this 1 in the future, but I highly doubt it. You know, even if you look at the 1, right? This is ounces per Bitcoin. Right now it's 21, which is way lower than the actual price, which is 30. But let's say we have a big bear after this or whatever, and we get close to this 1 again in late 2026. It's the same price as today. Doesn't mean we can't push this lower. We can. Gold is super strong right now. But you don't see anywhere on this chart, which is pretty strong, still a pretty good R squared, that the price is anything like it was in 2017, which is 1 ounce of gold per Bitcoin. Nothing close. And then I responded to APSK. I'll give some commentary to you guys in a second here. So APSK said something like, you know, we could just see if this was an irregularity for the last 10 years of gold basically moving sideways as an irregularity. Maybe there's a new trend to be formed. I tend to think not, right? Because if you really look at, this is basically gold in the modern era, right? Started out at 35 bucks an ounce. And a lot of people, when they do their present value functions or their rate functions, when they actually try to find the compound growth of this, they start here at 35 bucks and finish here at 4,000. Then you get something like 7, 8%, 9%, even maybe, I don't know. That's not the trend line. More important to focus on the trend. All right, there's a lot of fools buying gold here, you know, selling gold here, Brown's bottom. To act like the bottom here when it was a fixed price is really what's happening, doubtful. But if you look at this over the long term, this slope of this black line is 5.4 or 5.3% per year. Fixed, compounded, right? Straight line on log. But what I think is happening is just basically what happened here. And we could certainly push this a lot higher, but we were coming from a really low base here. So notice how the green just keeps pulling up the red. We set new highs, new highs. Look at the way that the red lines move in relation to the solid black is basically, again, the evolving exponential trend. So like super fast here, then like sideways to down, and then back up, evolving positive. But it evolved actually negative for 20 years, gold, which was a disaster for people that were super long gold in the 80s. Anyway, it's totally possible that right now, as we're going back to this 97th and a half, you know, basically this is a 2 sigma line. If we're going back to this, it's possible we keep pulling it back up. I have a hard time believing it, actually. Because if you look at the lifetime of the data, yeah, we're high, but we're not coming off of a super like bear, which we did here, and we even did here before the 80 peak. Bottom line, if we look out 5 years from now, let's go to the end of the decade. I think it's reasonable to say that gold is only maybe going to $5,000 an ounce, which is the levels we're at right now. Right? We're at the 2 sigma line, above it even. Or we go back to the trend, which is 2,500, 2,600. So again, over the long term, taking more comfort in what these charts suggest, it doesn't suggest that much craziness to me for gold. I see this, I see this, I see this, and I agree with you here. 140K. I agree. Thank you for the repost. The retweet. So I still think if you're a gold bug and are happy with your dollar gold prices, look at the Bitcoin chart. We know how much better Bitcoin is as money. There's not like a hidden secret here. It's just gold is pretty valuable in terms of Bitcoin historically, based on all the trends, based on the lines, but it's still 30 ounces. If you had not listened to Peter Schiff and bought it for 1 ounce or less, back here, you'd be 30 times better today. I really don't see this lasting. I mean, I just don't. It would surprise me if gold finds some new level, like pushes this black trend line up to, I don't know, $10,000 expected by 2030. It could happen. It's going to take a major move. It could happen. But see, Peter Schiff is focusing on this section. He's thinking, oh, these are new highs, this and that. But if you back it out, you see all the performance since gold stopped being pegged. Doesn't look that amazing. In fact, it looks pretty rich. I'm not going to lecture too much today, guys. Too much to do, so let me know if anybody has any hot tips on if I should try to gamble with the AA. Not AA. It's not a Freudian slip. FAA. I saw that Los Angeles airports were airplanes were grounded last night because of equipment problems, which probably doesn't mean that. It means FAA people weren't coming into work. Show you another one on chain. I showed a lot, but this is the ratio of new coins versus fees. New coins are in green that miners collect. This is in dollar terms, but in Bitcoin terms is the same. Nearly the same. In fact, this daily is exactly the same. The 30-day and the trailing 12 will be slightly different. But anyway, every time there's a spike, we see more white on this chart, like a serious spike, an unsustainable spike, a lot more white. Now, no white at all. Doesn't mean history has to repeat perfectly, but even look at what was happening in the run up to the election in 2024. A lot of speculation here. Nothing right now. Does that mean it's definitely not a top? Not definitely. But the history shows us that tops usually have a lot more white showing on this chart. Here's that revenue I was talking about. Also spikes pretty high, mostly due to fees. But the price itself spikes this, of course. This is directly correlated with the price. So these are daily issuance, new coins plus fees. Of course, the price spikes this a lot. Sort of figure out a little bit more. We look at the 30-day, more correlated to show some topping activity. And then now, really since the start of Bitcoin ETFs, it's been elevated, start of 2024, but it hasn't been, again, I don't see a spike. This is monthly revenue, by the way. And here's that daily that I just told you about. We are at 16.8 billion. Let me show you exactly. It's the dotted green line. Trailing 12-month miner revenue on Bitcoin if they sold everything they earned, both fees and issuance, fees and new coins. 16.8 billion bucks, topped in 2022 after the 2021 boom at about the same level. So again, usually a top is an order of magnitude higher than the prior metric with certain things, most things in Bitcoin. Doesn't mean it has to be the case here, but this is what we see. It would be very surprising to me if this sort of peters out, like this is just the top. Could be, but it seems surprising to me. Notice, by the way, how powerful the halving is. It chops off. It's like a knife through butter. Just chops off the trend that we were on. Less coins coming through means less trailing 12-month revenue. You see it every halving, but it doesn't, even went down here. Lasts for a little bit. Flat here. But really distinct here. Pretty interesting. Takes a while to regain its momentum after the halving. Gonna be fun. Gonna be fun this fall. What do you guys think? We haven't even hit the 8. We've hit the 7. but we haven't hit the 8. 80th percentile. That is price versus power trend, which, by the way, is only 1.3x. Think about that. Think about what this number means. It means all through the life, and take off the all time, all through the life of Bitcoin. There's a black line here. You can barely see it, but which is actually the power trend at the time, which changes every day. So all through the life of Bitcoin in the early days, 80% of the time, the price itself was below 1.3x the trend. That's something hard to beat, right? That shows us, just by the nature of the multiple, like it's hard to get up there. But we've gotten up there pretty soundly each prior bubble. I'm talking about the 8 now, not the 9. Pretty easily we get above the 8. This time, haven't even done it. Doesn't mean we have to do it this time, but to me, why discount past behavior? Good morning. 21 million. I like that. Undefined divided by 0. I guess I should have other tools in my toolkit, like actually studying all this Elliott wave and momentum and technical indicators. I don't spend my time doing too much of that because it's very short term, right? It's very short term. I talk to traders, I get their thoughts. To me, it's kind of 50-50. It's probably a good tool to have in the toolkit, but much more illustrative is something like this, where you can really see, are we behind the 8 ball, or are we really ahead of it? Are we really doing something different? And to me, it's just not different right now. It's all the same. It's all on trend. Let me know, guys, what else you want to see. Happy to update it. This one is always a fun one. I've shown this a lot recently. Once I get it to draw. One second. As usual, something's slowing it down these days. Damn. this a second. Anybody have any other thoughts on chain, price, whatever? I got another one coming, but I don't know why it's loading so slow. I keep saying this recently. I'm going to refactor my code or something. Here we go. All right, here's the fun one. Look at all the different models. Plan B's 2020, gone. It's like some exponential trend, which Bitcoin is not on. His original, 2019, which is still wrong because he's using gold and silver exponential coefficients for a power trend, which is not an exponential function. Pretty off. And you can see, it almost seems close, but remember, this is log scale, so power trend is within a couple $100 of the actual price. All the stock to flow models, even my own, which are the red ones, are way over. So his fixed one is gone. And then remember, the 2016 power trend is still $200,000 plus worse than the all-time, which is here, which is better. All-time, at least you're taking in data every day. But what's the point of a model if it keeps having to go down, 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 if it doesn't expect future behavior? So that leaves us with these. It's clearly not exponential. That's just a different curve. It's not a straight line on log scale. We're not at $655,000 or close. So exponential is gone. Stock to flow also is just a bit annoying. But then we have the idea, which I've talked about a lot, is imagine, and again, remember, look at the power curve in 2016 versus now. They're $5,000 difference. Unbelievable goodness of fit. This is only using data from 2016 and before. This is using all-time data. Okay, but here's the next interesting one I talked about. I think this is possible. People talk about if we keep just borrowing interest against Bitcoin, people stay on a fiat system, but we have more and more interest against Bitcoin. I do think it's possible Bitcoin switches to exponential. What that rate is, I have no idea. So the 2025 rate, which is 42% per year, is this. And the 2035 rate, which is like 24% per year, is like this. So to me, this is a more viable path. It's amazing, though, how different the numbers can be, right? So look at 2045. If we're still on power in 2045, $10 million Bitcoin. If we went in Expo at the end of this year, it'd be 386 million. Nobody's going to really be complaining about that unless we're in some tyranny state where everybody has to use fiat and somehow we can still have Bitcoin. Or if it turns Expo in 2035, 16.9 million. So these are also some options. But that's more philosophical. Nobody's near that. We're still trying to figure out what's going to happen this cycle. I can tell you one thing for sure, it's not going exponential. And it's certainly not going back to the all-time exponential trend, which is number one. I'm just not on Twitter enough to catch it. But does anyone remember Plan B did a tweet like the Power Law crew said to sell in February of this year, 2025. And then by the end of this year, 2025, there's going to be a face melting run to $1 million. He deletes his tweets a lot, so I don't know. He might have deleted it, but you can just look here. Statistically, according to the power curve, which is the correct curve, it could get to $1 million by the end of the year. It could, but it would be a 99.99999% breaker, meaning 0.0001% event. There's only one observation that has been as high as that relative to the power curve, and that was back in 2011. Right? We can find it. It's right here. $35. Versus the power curve at the time was 2. That's 7.8x. Power curve was not here. It was here in the evolving. So we can run this and very clearly, calmly, statistically understand where we are. I got to find that tweet. If anybody has that tweet, let me know. He said something like a face melting run to $1 million. He's always calling Bitcoin exponential as well, which confuses people. Let me show you the 90th. So this is the more fun one as well. Power curve above the 90th, above the 9 on my charts. Let me pull it up. All right, so same chart, but now we're drilling down above the 9. All right, so as I told you, every time we get into this rainbow, always, these are the days in the rainbow, these mountains, take them off. It's no more than 90, 100 days at a time. This was the softest. And by the way, it's possible we don't get into the 9 this time. I'm skeptical we don't even get into the 8 as I would think we would, but it's always possible we don't. But just so you know, to have this face melting run by the end of the year, as Plan B said in one tweet earlier this year. Again, it's a 0.01 percentile event to get to $1 million. Possible, but extremely, extremely rare. 1 percentile event then takes it back down to 582,000. 2 percentile event, 481,000. 3, 394. 4, 350. This is, by the way, where I think is actually in range of possibility. And then 350 down to 250 would be a 10 percentile event, i.e. 90% of the observations are below it. So you take off the more extremes. I've shown this many times, but I think somewhere here, the 5 or the 6, which I know is not great coloring, but we did hit the 6, the 96 percentile. We did hit it a couple times here. So this is where I think we are. Still. Why discount the possibility? Amidst all the chaos and... Oops, I know you can't see my... There we go. Tooltip. Seems like a big jump, but... and a lot of drama. But we've had it. We've done it before. I'm still looking for it, actually. He probably deleted it. Anyway. I certainly agree. Gold does not seem that exciting to me still, even at these levels. You know, we could go a while. It could be Bitcoin in terms of gold could be very different this time. I don't think in terms of dollars, but in terms of gold, it could be. Still, the max where gold sort of really set new highs outside of its prior channel would be from December 2007 to, you know, December 2011. 4 years. Here was sooner. A year. No one knows how long it's going to be in this really elevated range. I highly doubt that it's going to stay here. Well, I'll keep researching some of these predictions. It's coming time, right? By the end of this year, a lot of people said some crazy predictions. I'm not going to be disappointed if they come true, but I think it's important to understand statistically what it means relative to the best curve used to understand Bitcoin, which is a network growth curve. You know, even getting to these levels is a 4 to 10 percentile event. All, in fact, have occurred. We have precedent for all of them, these levels. 125 to 350, 2 to 3x the trend, 250 to 350. But we don't have precedent from all prior cycles on anything above this. And 350 is a long way from a million. Send me an email if you can find it. I remember specifically he read something like a face melting high FOMO of a million. Just typical stuff. It was either the end of 2024 or the start of 2025 he made the prediction. All right, everybody. If all goes well in the air, I will be traveling on Wednesday until the start of next week. But I'll be here tomorrow. Let me know, as always, if you like the charts, if you want to see something else. When I come back, we'll have a really good upgrade. Going to be a lot more network charts, a lot of these UTXO charts. I'll finally get up and running. So I think it'll be even more helpful for you to peruse not just the trends and the economic data, but this more on-chain data as well. All right, with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch. BTC Pay server on my site if you do want to throw a few sats over there. No subscription required. Thank you, MP. Thank you, everybody. Take care.